The mirror. What do you see? A proud Homo sapiens. We proudly call ourselves humans and assume we are the sole rulers of this planet. But why are there hundreds of monkey species and dozens of big cats, yet only one single human species? The truth is, our planet used to be extremely crowded. Just 50,000 years ago, at least 5 to 6 different human species coexisted. They weren't just different races, but entirely different biological species. They used fire, crafted advanced tools, buried their dead, and some even had bigger brains than us. Imagine waking up, looking across the valley, and seeing a completely different human species staring back at you. Then boom, suddenly they all vanished. Only our ancestors, Homo sapiens, remained. This is the most thrilling and mysterious cold case in human history. Were our ancestors cold-blooded killers who committed a brutal global genocide? Or is there a darker, much more ironic truth behind it all? Today, we reopen this 40,000-year-old case file. Let's start with the most famous suspect and victim, the Neanderthals. Hollywood often portrays them as brute, slouching cavemen who only grunt and carry wooden clubs. Sorry, Hollywood, but you got it all wrong. Neanderthals dominated Europe and Western Asia for over 400,000 years. Their brains were just as large, and some fossil skulls were even larger than ours today. They crafted sophisticated Moosterund stone tools, requiring high-level planning. They cared for their elderly and injured, showing deep empathy. Archaeologists found skeletons with severe fractures that healed, meaning others fed and cared for them for months. They buried their dead with rituals and wore jewelry made of eagle claws. In short, they were fully human, with a highly complex society. Then, about 40,000 years ago, right as Homo sapiens migrated from Africa to Europe, Neanderthals suddenly vanished. The coincidence is terrifyingly perfect. Wherever sapiens arrived, Neanderthals disappeared. Like a detective, you might point your finger at our ancestors and shout, "It was you, the killer!" But wait, correlation does not mean causation. Did we actually go around spearing every single Neanderthal? The first hypothesis, and the favorite of action movie directors, is direct warfare. A brutal, continent-wide war lasting thousands of years, where smarter, more aggressive sapiens slaughtered Neanderthals. But in reality, archaeological evidence of large-scale violence between the two species is extremely rare. It is hard to tell if a skull fracture was caused by an ancestor's rock, a hunting accident, or a bear attack. There are absolutely no mass graves proving a violent, systematic genocide. And here comes the ultimate plot twist from geneticists. If you are not of pure African descent, you carry 1% to 4% Neanderthal DNA. That is right. Our ancestors and Neanderthals actually got intimate with each other. They loved, mated, and raised hybrid children whose lineage survives in your very cells today. This creates a hilarious paradox for the genocide theory. You cannot easily wage a brutal war of total annihilation while simultaneously having romantic encounters with the enemy. However, geneticists note that this Neanderthal DNA is quite small, suggesting isolated encounters rather than massive integration. It was a highly complicated relationship, fighting in some places, trading in others, and loving in the shadows. If it was not spears and arrows, what actually killed them? Let us talk about sapiens' most terrifying weapon, disease. When our ancestors left Africa, they carried a deadly library of native viruses and bacteria. Homo sapiens had evolved to survive these pathogens, but Neanderthals in Europe were completely isolated. Their immune systems were like a blank slate, entirely unprepared for foreign germs. History shows us that when the Spanish arrived in America, diseases like smallpox wiped out 90% of the native population without firing a shot. A single prehistoric sapiens sneezing in a Neanderthal cave could have signed a death warrant for the entire tribe. Of course, deaths from pneumonia or infection leave absolutely no trace on ancient bones for archaeologists to find. On top of that, nature itself was not on their side. Between 40,000 and 28,000 years ago, Europe's climate was wildly unstable, with relentless ice ages hitting one after another. Already small in number, the Neanderthal population was pushed to the absolute brink by the freezing environment. They were like a bankrupt company, needing only a tiny push from a competitor to completely collapse. That dangerous competitor was none other than our ancestors, operating under a brutal biological rule: competitive exclusion. Two species competing for the exact same food and shelter cannot coexist peacefully forever. One must eventually go. Homo sapiens possessed two advanced weapons that Neanderthals lacked, starting with massive social networks. Sapiens traded materials over hundreds of miles, meaning they could call on distant allies for help during a famine. Meanwhile, Neanderthals lived in tiny, isolated family groups. If they starved, no one was coming to save them. Our second weapon was hunting technology. Neanderthals were muscular and built for brutal, close-range combat, literally stabbing mammoths face to face. This was incredibly dangerous and burned massive amounts of daily calories. Homo sapiens, however, invented spear throwers and bow and arrow systems to safely snipe prey from a distance. Our ancestors did not need to actively hunt Neanderthals. They just hunted all the deer and took the best caves. Sapiens ate well and multiplied, while starving Neanderthals were pushed to barren lands, slowly fading away over millennia. But this story does not end in Europe. On the other side of the world in Asia, another mysterious species lived, the Denisovans. They were so mysterious that scientists discovered them not from a full skeleton, but from a single pinky bone and a few teeth. Yet advanced DNA sequencing revealed a massive Denisovan empire that once stretched across all of Asia. And guess what? They also got intimate with our ancestors. Denisovan DNA is highly concentrated in modern indigenous Australians, Papuans, and some Southeast Asians today. In fact, Tibetans can easily live and run at altitudes over 4,000 meters without oxygen deprivation, thanks to a special Denisovan gene. Meanwhile, on the isolated Indonesian island of Flores, archaeologists found the tiny Homo floresiensis, nicknamed the Hobbit. They also vanished around 50,000 years ago, precisely when modern humans arrived on their island. In a tiny island environment with limited resources, the tiny hobbits stood no chance against the hungry sapiens giants. So, what is the final verdict on this global prehistoric cold case? Did modern humans kill off the other species? The honest answer is yes, but not through a bloody, cinematic war of mass genocide. We wiped them out through a combination of silent, devastating forces. We brought diseases, outcompeted them with superior social networks, pushed them to the margins, and occasionally absorbed them. There is a romantic perspective. They did not entirely disappear, as parts of them live on inside our DNA. But there is a much darker, chilling perspective to consider. From the moment we left Africa, Homo sapiens possessed a terrifying ability to dominate, assimilate, and erase any competition. We did this even to other human beings who felt, fought, buried their dead, and looked up at the very same stars. They are gone forever, leaving us completely alone on this massive planet. Whether we truly deserve to survive is no longer a question of science, but a question you must answer every time you look in the mirror.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update.